Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of What We Do in the Shadows Season 4 premiere, consisting of 2 episodes, Reunited and The Lamp. And I think this was a pretty strong opening for this season, specifically for Reunited and then getting into the actual kind of storyline that we are going to be kind of following through for this season. And it just really worked very well, and we got a lot of good character moments and jokes and developments from everybody involved. Even the guide. It's like, okay, this is how we go for it. Now, I wasn't laughing out loud over, like, the whole thing, but there are certain moments that are just like, alright, this is really good. And, so, we pretty much start off when we get our recap of, like, where we left off our family, and then we're, like, 1 year later, and we see that the house is falling to shit. And the camera crew is kind of, like, going through, like, what the fuck's going on here? And they get into this room, and we see that Laszlo is watching this home improvement show, and he's like, oh, just be quiet, it's the only thing that, makes, like, lulls him to sleep. And it's funny because one of the great kind of jokes is that, yes, I don't call him Colin Robinson or Colin because he came from Colin Robinson's body, so I've just been pretty much calling him Boy. And we see how he's pretty much been handling the kid. And it's nuts. They do, like, oh my god. He's been, like, growing at an advanced rate. And we see that it's, like, pretty messed up. We see that he is helping him, like, hey, give me a nail. And he gives him a nail gun, and he, like, shoots all these nails at Laszlo, and he hits him, and he's, like, not pissed off, really, he's just, like, 1, and then Colin's, like, alright, and teaching him woodworking, which kind of involves using a chainsaw to, like, cut down this tree thing that, like, fell through the house. It's, like, I do applaud him for attempting to take care of this child creature thing. However, he is not good at it. Okay? As these 2 episodes vastly show. So, his main objective is also to make sure that he's not boring, as we see later on in Reunited, as we start exploring that he has been doing psychological things and experiments to this kid. It's like, oh my god. And he's trying to make him into an interesting adult, as we see him also teaching him fencing, and him be like, oh, you're kind of getting better. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, this could be making into one crazy-ass motherfucker, and you'd be like, oh my god. And, evidently, per Laszlo's laziness, we hear somebody at the door, and he's like, god damn it, if it's a gas company employee again. He's like, I know about the gas leak. I'm gonna do something about it, and, like, he doesn't do the easy thing to fix the gas leak, or, like, let the gas company people be like, hey, can we get in here and probably fix this gas leak so you don't blow the fuck up? He's been killing them, kind of like almost an Uber Eats is what I'm kind of thinking. That Laszlo's lazy, like, I don't want to deal with this. And it's also an easy stream of him for, like, being fed. You know what I mean? So it's like, I gotta go, and I gotta kill this gas employee. It's just a funny example of, like, oh my god, you could fix it and make sure you don't blow up. But, go for it. And he opens it, and we see that he's also been telling us that Nudge has been sending boxes and everything. He's like, I should forward them over to England. But he hasn't gotten around to it. But then we see the doll there, and we're like, hey, guess what? He's like, how the fuck did you get here? And, of course, Nadja gets back, and he immediately gets down to, oh yeah, let's go fuck. And she's surprised that the crew's alive. It's funny, like, the thought processes of these vampires of, like, oh, humans die so quickly, these fuckers are still alive? And he's asking why she's back, and he's like, oh, I gave it up because I missed you so much. And then she slaps him, and I'm like, I'm glad that he's got repercussions for what he did, sending her off to England without talking about the kid. And he's like, but I told you about the kid. And she's like, yes, I get that, but still. And then she's like, all right, where is the little darling? Oh, is that him? No, that's a raccoon. They take it up residence in the library as we see them going around. And I'm like, okay, that could lead to some funny ass shit. So he's upstairs asleep, and he's like, she's like, hey, I have another surprise. And Nandor just comes in, what's up? And it's like, oh, geez. And he's like, it was a greeting of the olden days. I'm like, yep, haven't heard that in a while. And that actually tracks, because granted, vampires would be behind the times on most kind of things. And I'd be like, yeah, that hits. Let's see. Okay, Nandor's being like, yeah, I missed you, Laszlo. And Laszlo's like, I kind of want to fuck my wife. and But then he, like, moves a little bit and goes through the floor. He's like, I'm good. Could somebody throw down a candle? Because I smell like a gas leak down here. And I'm like, sweet Jesus, these motherfuckers are going to blow themselves up. And that becomes a really good joke of, like, shit and people falling through the floors. Like, they do it so well spaced out, and you kind of forget about it enough that this house is fucking unstable anymore. And they just hit very well. So we get Nandor pretty much explaining what's kind of going on. That he got on the train, he got as far as Fresno, and kind of palled around with this, like, Wisconsin family, and that he was going to drain them, but that he liked their love and their affection. And then Nandor does an impression of their accent, and I'm really glad that they do that, because the actor that does Nandor can do impressions very well. But he saw their love and affection, he missed his family, and decided to go back to his homeland, Al Kolinar. And he booked passage on a ship, and he's like, I'm not sure you guys are listening, as they're setting on this SETI and fucking. And he's like, no, I can multitask at once, Laszlo's saying. And he's like, you were talking about a container ship. Continue. And he's like, alright. And he did it. He got on there. He drained the whole crew. And then he got hit with a little delay. I fucking loved and just fucking laughed so hard at this. It's like, they pegged the Suez Canal on Nandor, and I'm like, yes! That totally would fucking happen with Nandor. So it was, oh, Jesus. Oh, fucking hell. So he's talking about how he got home, and we see that Colin starts rolling around. Well, not Colin, the kid. And he's like, oh, okay. And they keep going on the joke. And the thing is, it doesn't get overtly done where it's like, oh, the thing that is not Colin Robinson but is Colin Robinson. You know what I mean? They keep doing it in various different kind of, like, at least how they say it and how they kind of go in on it and when they bring it up. So that way it doesn't get like, hey, beaten over the head. But I'm glad that they're trying to differentiate and make sure that this is not just, hey, Colin Robinson just rebirthed and we get another person. Like what they did with Nadja's Daw. I consider that a distinct character at this point. Let's see. This is where we then get into where he's thinking that, is he boring like Colin Robinson? And then Laszlo goes into like, no, I've been performing these experiments using my scientific method, which Laszlo's scientific method is fucked. And he's been doing this for 2 months where he's like doing isolation tests and shit, showing him shit, like saying, hey, get the good literature, not the kids shit that's like designed for the kids, doing shock therapy, doing all this weird shitty science shit. And then of course he was showing him showing all these boring things, and he was just as bored by how tedious they were as well. So let's see here. And then Nando's like, are you still having sex? Or are you went back to having sex? It's like, if you stop interrupting. It's like, I'm not baking a cake here. As we see Nadja's feet in the air, and they're going for it. And she was getting close, and it's like, not sure the SETI can take it. And she's like, this thing has taken centuries of our lovemaking. And then, bam, it goes through. And it's like, at least it's like, okay, we got one person walking in, not sure the structural stability. Boom! And then these guys are just making love like ain't nobody's business, and then bam, they go through, and they're still going at it. And then Laszlo's laughing, and they're like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm kind of drowning, but it's kind of hot. Let's do this shit. So they get back upstairs, they're kind of toweling themselves off, and then we start hearing this banging. And then Laszlo's explaining, yeah, that's the pipes. I haven't been able to fucking find it, and I've been taking a sledgehammer to all these walls, trying to figure out where it is, but no such luck. And Nandor's like, if we're getting to this point, we're going to get to a point where we're not going to have a room that we can, like, structurally be sound in. And then, of course, the doll remembers, like, hey! Because he was wondering, like, Guillermo used to keep this place in ship shape, ship shape, and tip-top shape. And Laszlo keeps forgetting about him. He's like, who the fuck are you talking about? And then Nacho's like, oh yeah, I got a little present. And we hear, like, the source of the pounding, and it's Guillermo. He's been in this crate for 2 fucking weeks. And he's like, oh, there's the source of the pounding. Pipes are fine. And Guillermo's like, you bastards. Fuck you. I've been in here for 2 weeks. And Nacho's like, I gave you extra Oreos and Pedialyte. He's been in a fucking crate. They shipped him across the Atlantic twice. He has a right to be fucking pissed. And he's like calling him out. He's like, you're dead to me. You're dead to me. You're dead to me. And Nacho's like, well, we technically are dead. It's like, and then Nando's like, okay, that's a good one, but he's kind of pissed. And he's like, oh, if you're going to cry, you can cry. But if you go poop yourself elsewhere. And he's getting ready to go out. But then he falls through the floor. It's like, yes, perfect time to bring that back. But we also get an interesting character moment because Nandor immediately dives in after him. It's like, huh. So he is taking Guillermo a little more seriously. Because he will laugh at him somewhat, but he does... he tries. Like, I'm not going to say he's a completely good person and he's good-hearted at this and whatnot, but he attempts to try and think of Guillermo's feelings and everything. But he brings him up. He, like, gets all the water back out of him, and not just like, he needed a bath anyway. Yeah. That's a good way to have a bath. So Nandor's drying Guillermo, and he's saying he's fine. And Guillermo's like, listen, I gotta look out for number 1, and that's me. But we all know how that's gonna fucking go. He has it in his head, he just has to actually fucking execute on the thing. He's like, listen, you can fix me a water. And then, of course, Nandor's like, I know you want to leave because you feel disrespected, because he is constantly disrespected. But Nandor's like, you disrespected me by leaving me on the train. It's like, he didn't do that. Laszlo fucking snatched his ass up and fucking nailed him into a wooden box and shipped him across the Atlantic. He was going to go with you, you fucking asshole. And he's like, it wasn't my fault. And he's like, agree to disagree. Fuck you. Fuck you, man. Oh my god. But he says he forgives him, and then he's going to ask him to be says that he's his friend and all that. Always his friend in no definition. He's like, I want you to be my best man at my wedding. He's like, alright, cool. And he thought he'd be a little bit jealous, but he's not. He's like, alright, happy to accept. And Guillermo's just like, yeah, some people would say it's cooler to be the best man instead of a vampire. He's like, some people would say that. It's like, yeah, Guillermo is kind of happy about it, but of course he's been waiting to be a vampire for fucking ever. And then he's like, alright then, as my best man, I need you to find me a bride. He's like, what? That's actually not the job of a best man. And he's like, I kinda, need one. I've been lonely, so the only way to fix that is find a bride by the end of the month. That's not a good way to get into a relationship. Hey, I'm lonely, how about I just marry your ass? But that's Nandor. Oh, shit. Then we start seeing the kid running around with a fucking candle on his head. And Guillermo's like, what the fuck's going on here? Takes it off. And the thing is, Laszlo's like, honey, I found him. And Nadja's like, I found him too. And he's like, whatever you found, I don't know what the fuck that is. And then we see her like, oh yeah, it's a raccoon. And it's just like trying to fucking fight her and shit. Oh, God. And then we see one of the great bits of okay, Nandor got Guillermo water from a shitty ass pipe. I'm like, what the fuck? And then we see this pipe collecting, this pan collecting water. Laszlo tosses it out. And he's like, yeah, I give him that candle so that way when he's running underneath in the basement, he can see what he's doing. It's like, you mean the basement with the fucking gas leak? That could blow up the whole fucking house? And he lets him swim around in sewage to get through the sillies. And he's like, come on, boy, time to eat. And then he takes that pan, and he takes Count Chocula, And we see the look of horror on Guillermo's face as he takes it, dumps it out with like nothing else, treats him like a dog, says, "Boy, stay. Have at it." As he's like growing through, and Guillermo is just like, "Oh Jesus, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not how you do that shit, bro." And it's just like I give maybe the smidgen of credit that Laszlo wanted to be a good parent, and he wants to be a good parent, and that his heart is in the right place. But if this show doesn't show you that you should never leave your children with Laszlo, I don't know what would. Sweet Jesus. He's like, "I've got to stay here because it's a death trap, and I got to make sure this kid doesn't die." And that's Guillermo's weakness. I mean, granted, it'd be kind of my weakness too. I'd be like, I need to at least get this kid to make sure that he doesn't fucking kill himself, or the lunatics fucking kill him too. And then Guillermo kind of like gets into his kind of trauma that his mom worked a lot. He kind of had to take care of himself, and it was hard, and that no kid should have to go through that. As we see Guillermo fixing shit up, baby-proofing certain things, dragging dead bodies, and it's like, oh shit. And then he's like, after the wedding, and make sure the kid doesn't die, I'm taking care of myself. And then we see a raccoon coming down the stairs. Sweet Jesus. So we get down, and there's a meeting. They're trying to figure out how to fix the house. We see that I love the costumes as well that they've got with the actors. They did a really good bang-up job here. And Guillermo's chasing Colin around. Well, the Colin kid creature. And they're watching like 15 episodes of the fucking house improvement thing. And Guillermo's like, "Listen, we need a structural engineer. We need a team of contractors. We need at least 2 plumbers." And he's decided not to talk with Laszlo and Nadja. And I don't blame them, because they have both put him in fucking crates 2 times across the Atlantic. Yeah. You might say it passive-aggressive kind of shit, but, like, fuck them. And they need money, so they gotta figure out what to do. Colin was in charge of that, and he's dead. And Laszlo's like, "Listen, I have his ATM card, but I don't have his password." And then Guillermo's like, "Fine, okay." We see that he has attempted to stop the kid from, like, fucking around with a goddamn light socket. So he takes him, he's like, "Alright, what's your name?" "Colin." And then Laszlo's like, "He's only saying that because you keep calling him that." And he's like, "Alright, do you know the password to, like, the ATM thing?" And he starts writing it out, and he's thinking, oh, he might kind of be in there. But it turns into a joke where he just keeps saying numbers. He's like, "Well, at least I tried." Ugh. So then we get into the main crux. Nadja's is that she wants to do a vampire nightclub, like Blade. Then we see Nandor's ideas. His first idea is to rob Fort Knox with 600 yards of really strong rope. And Laszlo asks the very important question of, why would he need that much fucking rope? And while this is going on, Laszlo's like, "And if you think you're gonna sell my fucking TV projector, fuck you. Get fucked. That ain't happening. I got a show next week." And then Nandor's like, "Maybe I'll break into Henry Ford's house and steal all his money. I only need 10 yards of strong rope for that." And Nadja then gets into her whole kind of groove of what happened at the Supreme Vampiric Council. And as they're pretty much ignoring her, and she's like, "Alright, I learned a couple lessons here. Not to get stuck on 10-year planning committees, because that's where they put the Z-list and C-listers." It's like, yep, vampires would be petty little bastards on that shit. And we see kind of how boring it is. Second is to use her special voice, because she was afraid to use hers, and she gives this presentation. It's like, "Hey, how about for a plan we do a vampire nightclub?" And then we get the whole kind of joke that every new vampire that gets onto that council thing, gets onto that committee, suggests a nightclub thing. So I think they could have went a little bit farther with that, where they would have like interviewed that head person and be like, "Yeah, every fucking time. Fuck, even I did that when I got here." I'd like them to go back to like ancient kind of times, and you get like the cavemen, you got like this council, and you got caveman vampire like kind of shit, and it's just like, we've had this before. Everybody always does it. And it's just like, alright. And especially because she's got the idea from Blade. And I'm just like, oh god, this is gonna be great. So, let's see. And she also learned that she really wanted to do a nightclub. And the thing is, that really fits with Nadja and Laszlo. I mean, shit, they get into, like, the parties and the orgies and shit, so it just fits so well with what they kind of do. And that's when she decided to quit. And I'm like, I get that. Like, granted, some other reasons are petty, but I get it. And Guillermo pretty much gives them, like, the easiest way out to get the money. Like, it's funny. I don't mind them wanting to work for their shit, but the easiest kind of route, he's like, why don't you just hypnotize a bank teller? And she's like, no! She uses this loud voice, pretty much blows out their hearing, and it's like, we're doing the club. Any questions? None. So they decide to go to the Vampiric Council HQ in Staten Island, and Guillermo pretty much asks questions of Nandor's like, hey, okay, so you got home. How did that go? And he's like, it was the same as usual. Even the same as I left it. He's like, really? How's that? And he's like, they were all vampires, the whole village. And he's like, oh, wasn't that nice to be among your own kind? He's like, no, because when everybody's a vampire, I'm not special. I'm like, you petty asshole. And he said, it fucked with his mental health. And then, of course, they're not just like, are you two tits coming along and everything? It's like, all right. So they open the door and we see that the guide has just been waiting there for a year and would have moved, but she's like, if I moved, that probably would have been when you came back. And it's like, oh shit, she's dusty and everything. And it's like, alright, we got a lot of council business. And she's like, yeah, we're taking a change of direction. We're going to do a nightclub. And she's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Where are we going to do it? As Laszlo's pretty much using a tape measure, like, right here. And it's like, alright, so that's a good setup. We'll see how that kind of goes. That then leads us into The Lamp, which is delineated into two main stories. Nadja pretty much tried to figure out how to get everything done with setting up her nightclub and everything going on. And then the thing for the title of the episode, The Lamp, dealing with Nandor and Guillermo and a Jinn. And I love that we have expanded out to Jinns and how it kind of works out like that. So we see that it's not going well for Nadja with her stuff. Every time she's trying to like make a change or utilize her workers, the race and the guide stops her ass. Like, she's been a part of this building forever, and she's like, we're not doing this. And she wants all of her stuff where it is because of the system. And like, Laszlo's like, if you want me to change this shit, it took hours. You can get fucked. She's like, nah. And she starts using the race against him. And it's just funny as shit. Now, we then go to Nandor pretty much going to a dog park and pretty much trying to chat up this lady and trying to ask her to marry him. And he says it in such the creepiest kind of way. He's like, listen, I found 850 pounds of like my secret ancestral treasure that he brought back from his home. And he's like, it would be a great massive dowry and everything. My only kind of issue with it is it's secret kind of thing that goes where kind of the basement would be, so you would think it would be flooded. That's my biggest kind of issue with that. Otherwise, I'm like, okay, he's got this thing, he's got it there. He's like, modern women don't really want it. He's keeping it a secret from the housemates, but then Guillermo comes down and is like, oh, this is pretty kind of cool. He's like, God, I locked the door. It's like, you really didn't. You also had it opened up to everything, because granted, there really wouldn't be many doors in shape because of how fucked up the house is. And it's like, looking around, is like, oh, is this all real and everything? And he tries to touch some stuff. He's like, stop touching it. We get back, and then we get to this section. There are two green screen sections in here that really don't work for me. They're not completely and utterly horrendous, but you can tell that Nadja is in front of the green screen, and at the end point, Nadja and Laszlo are in front of the green screen. And it's not the worst kind of quality, but it's not up to the quality that I've usually liked from this show. So that's my only kind of like nitpick. It really didn't completely affect my enjoyment of these episodes, though. Let's see. So we see that the workers are getting pulled down off their ladders by the race. The one with the guides was better, as like one of the race is like cutting under the ladder and puts him down. We see Laszlo pretty much watching the home improvement show with the workers, and he's defending the home improvement show to the workers. Oh, that's great. So now just like, fuck this, I'm going all stick on this. Uh, so she then decides to essentially go and do the whole gossip route on the guy, being like, oh yeah, I talked to the Vampiric Worldwide Council, the Supreme One, and a lot of people think that this is like outdated, man, that it would be better off it was like a CVS. And she's like, who said that? The main one, Dark Lord Tarantus, the liquidator of underlings. And of course, this scares her. She's like, all right, Wraiths, stop doing this. And then just the look on Nadja's face, like, yeah, that fucking worked, baby. Oh, Lord. Then we move back into the main kind of thing. Nandor pretty much going through his sacred treasures and being like, oh, yes, I could have gotten a lot of wives with this spoon. And Guillermo's like, yeah, modern women can get access to those spoons all the time. He's like, this is truly a time of miracles. And we then see that he's like, what's this? Oh, it's a lamp. Oh, like a genie lamp. Yeah, and he's like, all that shit's horse shit. And I've tried this. I've found hundreds of these. I rubbed them and everything. And we see how he's rubbed them and everything. And he's like, why haven't you tried rubbing the other way, counterclockwise? All right. And it's like, this dude is hundreds of years old, and he never had that thought. He does it. He thinks that they're dying and all that. And he's like, you spent all that time and never thought to do it the other way. He's like, you really want those to be your last words? And then we see the Jin dude pop up. And he's like, yeah, you don't really look like a Jin. And he's like, you really shouldn't say that. I did. Oh my god. So we see Nadja, Laszlo, and the guide pretty much in the main room. They're gathering all the race. And Nadja's like, all right, let's get this done. And she's like, hold on, this isn't all the race. I don't want to say this twice. She's like, some of these race are habitual stragglers. And then she pretty much goes through and tells them, all right, we're not going to kill them anymore. We're going to divide up into squads and everything and get this shit done. But then one of the human workers walks in, and the race kill him. And she's like, oh, I was afraid this would happen. They've been together with me so long that they'll just ignore what I tell them to and do what they know in my heart I want to do. And Laszlo's like, all right, so logically you're prepared to do this, but emotionally you got some resistance. And Laszlo's like, all right, I got this shit. And oh my god, he's like, I think I can fix her. And we then go into this whole spiel about how Laszlo was friends with Sigmund Freud, and that he was there around the birth of psychology, and that Freud was like snorting cocaine and working on his hand envy theory. But then they both took like a steam bath together. Freud saw his dick and then came up with the whole theory of penis envy. And I'm like, yep, that's Laszlo there. That makes total fucking sense. We get back to the whole thing with the Jin. I'm pretty much trying to figure out what's going on. They're trying to wonder how many wishes there are. He's like, do you wish to know the answer to that? And then Nandor stupidly like, yes. It's like, oh, 52, but now that's 51. And we see him utilizing the pen click going throughout that's how he like fulfills a wish and everything. So it's like, all right. And he's like, all right, I could have wished for a new love, but I found it, probably one of my 37. But then he doesn't remember. So like, all right, how about you bring them all back? And it was like, can you do that with one wish? And that's the thing. I like that they do a wish amount, but they don't do a complete tally on it. Now, granted, they do some weird shit throughout here that could fudge with the totals, but we'd have to kind of see on that. So I wish that they had kind of like, I don't need to be a stickler on it, but like a general guideline of how many wishes he kind of goes through. So we see them all, and they're like, he's got guys and girls as his wives. He's like, I'll roll with that. And Guillermo's face is priceless as they go out and they see all of the wives and everything, and he's just like, they're yelling at him and everything. He's like, all right, I wish they all spoke English. And click, and it's just a seamless transition, yelling to him at English. and they're like going after his ass. They get back in the room and they kind of lock it, and it's just like, oh god. And then he's like, hey Guillermo, yeah, I'm gonna need you to install 37 bunk beds in the attic. I'm like, um, good luck trying to fit that much shit, structural integrity wise. So we get back and we see Laszlo essentially doing a psychoanalysis on the guy. She's watched over the building for hundreds of years. She feels things. He's always trying to relate it back to something sexual, but she's like, no, if something hits it or whatnot, I get a headache. If it's backed up, I get backed up. Um, and if something's changed, there's just going to be bad energy with that. And she brings up certain stuff of like OCD kind of stuff. Like, you get that kind of bad feeling and you do these certain things to like allay that bad feeling because you think if you don't do those things, something bad's going to happen. And it's like, I get that. I understand that. And then we see Guillermo with the food, and Nandor's berating him, like, why are you shopping? He's like, this is the Uber Eats for all your 37 wives. He's like, yeah, 32. And he's like, what did you do with the rejects? They're not rejects. But this is kind of funny because they essentially do their own kind of commentary on the Thanos snap without it being, like, very overt or anything. And they're like, oh, no. We just redeaded them. It's like, they were dead before, and then you brought them back to life. So that means they're alive. So you killed them. And that they just, like, get dusted pretty much and go to paradise. And the Jin's like, yeah, sure. They do this whole kind of gold coin thing. As we then see an example, and she's like, hey, Nandor said you had a gold coin for me. He's like, yep. Flicks her head, she dusts, and it's like, oh shit. That's kind of fucked up. And then we see the whole thing of Nandor Xing out his wives on the painting he has. It's like, oh my god, you fucking asshole. Someone shouldn't be this cavalier with this. Oh my god. So then we see him going through all the different kind of like wives, asking one like 34 questions, like, who would you want to have dinner with? Pretty much not have Nandor in there when it's like 3 of them. It's like, alright. We get back to Laszlo and the guide, and he pretty much hypnotizes her to kind of like get into her head and kind of see what's going on. And he's like, alright, you're in a corridor. I love fucking Laszlo's voice with it. Like, the cadence and everything just makes it fucking funny, like with what he pronounces and how he puts emphasis on words. He's like, okay, you see a door. What is it marked with? Storage. Boxes. Right? You open a box. What is inside? More boxes. Alright. Alright, get the fuck out. It's funny because he's like doing the commanding hypnotist voice, and then he's like, alright, get the fuck out. We see Guillermo talking to someone on the phone, and they say that they really miss him. He's like, yeah, I'm not jealous. And it seems like he has like a significant other or whatnot. He's like, yeah, I'm in a good place. And we see like the other wives and everything because he's bringing in like dresses and all that. One of them is watching the kid, and she's like, listen, I'm really exhausted from watching this kid. It's like, is that energy vampire shit? Is he pulling that kind of shit? We'll have to kind of see if that is. And he's like, listen, I'll be there. Hold on. Calling him like a eunuch. It's nice to have a non-threatening male around. We get back to Laszlo and the guide, and he's like, alright, we're in the corridor. She's like, man, somebody needs to clean this up. And he's like, fuck that shit. You see a door, what's it say? Conversation starters, looks like formal, not formal, the shame door, box, another box one. He's like, oh, go there, open up the shame one. It's like, no, I can't open it. Fuck that. Alright. Somebody strong is like going down the corridor. Of course he would think that it would be him. And then she's like, it's Guillermo. And Laszlo's like, what the fuck? No way. It's not Guillermo. He's like, yeah, it's Guillermo. And he's like naked and glistening. And he's like, alright, he tries to, he opens the door. And it's like, can't really because he's all oiled and glistening. And his hands keep slipping off the door. And like, Laszlo's like, I'm gonna need to take a break on this. And him just being like, holy fucking shit. So we see the Jin, it's just like, what have I gotten myself into with all this? Xing out more and more people. He wrestles one, he loses to him, and he's going through all this kind of stuff, saying that they wouldn't lose to him, they'd be humble, excellent listener, all this kind of stuff as we there flicking people out. We see hits on like the Bachelorette shit with these like roses and all that. And it's just a really good kind of montage to kind of get through more of them in kind of funnier, different kind of ways. And then we get to a last one where he chases one out with a lobster, and he's just like, and then she runs into the road and gets hit and killed by a truck. He's like, ooh, that kind of sucked. It's a process. And we come back and we see that Nandor and Guillermo are trying to find the kid, and it's like, you shouldn't let him wander off. And it's really interesting because we see that the kid has wandered back into Colin's old room, and he is knocking on a wall with a hammer. Now, I don't know if he's attempting to try and find something that Colin had, like, hid in the walls, if he's trying to emulate Laszlo going around trying to find the pipes with the sledgehammer, or if he's just a kid just doing kid things and being like, hey, you got a hammer, I'm gonna fucking hammer some walls or whatnot. So, we'll have to see if that hits out on anything. But he's trying to, like, he's, like, calling out that Guillermo's grumpy. He's, like, tired, got to take care of your 37 wives, down to 7 now. And he's got to make sure the kid doesn't die. He hasn't slept in weeks. He missed his mother's birthday party 3 years in a row. He's like, I'd have to know, like, that it was your mother's birthday and know you do things. It's like, fuck you, Nandor. That really goes to show how, yes, you say you care about Guillermo. You really don't. And he then kind of calls him out, and it's like, I'm glad you want to find a wife. It's cool. He has a family to see because I have to take care of you assholes, the vamps, and not himself. And it's like, oh, you bored the kid to sleep. And Guillermo's like, he's like, I'm kidding. It's like, no, you're not. Then we get the big kind of breakthrough with Laszlo, and the guy's like, yep, we learned that this job is not a job for the guide. It's punishment. That she locked away her shameful shit, and that she did some crazy fucking shit as we see a montage of the paintings. Let's see here. She led the Inquisition, so that's a big beef. Danced the dance of the 7 veils with no veils, and that she was an extra vampire doing crazy ass shit. Let's see. So they also wanted to get to the bottom of the Guillermo business of why he kept popping up. And let's see. So then we get back and we see that they had switched places. She was sitting in the psychoanalyst chair, and he was like sitting down on the couch settee kind of thing, taking notes, and everything. Like, don't stop, this is getting good. And the ultimate kind of thing that set her up for this punishment is that she slept with a vampire killer, a Van Helsing. And he's like, no shit. He's like, yep. And she did it because it was a kind of depravity, that it was kind of dangerous and everything. Will this climax be the end of her story? And it's just like, oh shit. I could see why they'd be like, yeah, you're gonna deal with these assholes. And we then shift over and we see that Laszlo and Nadja are asking Guillermo to seduce her. And at first he's like, no way. And Guillermo's like, what? It's every young man's fantasy. And she could teach you a thing or two or whatnot. And he's like, all right, what's your price? She's like, well, what do you want? I want to be the nightclub accountant. And I'm like, why would you want to do that? I do like that he keeps, like, doing his own kind of thing, because he went from familiar to bodyguard, and now he's doing this. So there's got to be a reason, and I can't wait to find out what that is. Because even Nadja's like, I'm a little suspicious, but I don't give a fuck. You're going to do what I want, and I'm giving you a small bone. I don't give a shit. Just do it. And Guillermo's like, out of all the things I've been asked by these vamps to do, being asked to seduce a vampire, that's a new one. So we see that Guillermo goes to the guide, and he's like, she's like, I know why you're here. The answer's no. So are you going to think about the nightclub? And she's like, oh, that's fine. I'm good with that. But no, you and my forbidden love, that can't be. As she's like, wanting to do something about it, and Guillermo just being completely uncomfortable with it, being pushed onto the couch and everything, and her kind of like touching him and all that. But she's like, no, we can't do this. And even though I feel it from like my past life and all that. And she's like, how about we just be friends? He's like, all right, yeah, that'll work. And she later got a like a high five or whatnot, but then she's got a sledgehammer. She's like, let's do this shit. And then she's pretty much like bashing around on Collins, and this is where we get the other kind of green screen where Laszlo's like, yes, I cured her, and she's in a better mental state now, and free of charge. It's like, yeah, But you kind of dredged up some really fucked up shit, and that could lead to some serious repercussions later on. So I'm interested to see if we'll get any kind of changes, and potentially if we do see Guillermo and her kind of hook up or not. Because that could be another avenue for him to becoming a vampire if he decides to be completely and utterly fed up with Nandor. Which, I get that he wants Nandor to make him a vampire. But at this point, you should just say, fuck you, and find someone that would actually follow through for him. Last we see is Nandor. She's like, I found the one. I'm engaged to Marwa. And then she's like talking about herself and all that kind of stuff. And then he like leaves her to kind of doing that. She's talking about like astrology of like the movements of Saturn and Jupiter. And he's like, okay, how about I always envisioned my love would be blonde. And then he's like, all right, wish. A little more red. All right. You know what? Just put it back to what her hair color was. I'm burning through these wishes, man. It's like nothing. You're wasting it a lot. He's like, who cares? It works because it's for the woman he loves. And then seeing them looking at the camera and being like, so I really liked it, and I liked how the beginning episode hit on all the major characters and balanced it well enough so that way you did not feel that any one person got left out. The only one who could have potentially, you could argue that case for, would be the guide. Though I think of them more as an ancillary support character, that they have been doing some good stuff, which they even kind of rectified in the second episode of delving more into her past and bringing up that she a buck wild motherfucker and she get freaky with vampire killers. And that could lead to some really crazy shit. And I loved how she had the headbutting with Nadja. I'm like, I get Nadja wanting to do the nightclub. And seeing her, how she deals with this other roadblock of like, fuck this shit. Even though she's coming in and fucking up somebody else's shit. She wouldn't like that now, would she? And how the second one was really well balanced between two stories. I mean, you can be like, there's A story and B story, but the thing is, they were given both equal enough weight and interwoven enough that you didn't feel like you were jumping around fucking constantly. I have to stress that. This show does a good job of, when it does one main story, like in the beginning, getting us back into the central space of where we are in Season 4 and laying out the central concept of Vampire Nightclub and the insanity that's going to ensue with them attempting to do this feat. The second one is good with having two good stories that you're interested in both ones, and you don't feel like you're jacked out of one to get back to another, or like, what the fuck's going on? I didn't feel that way. I'm like, okay, we got to a certain point, we got this stuff, and we're moving back to the other story. And bam, we move to the other one. It's just, I've seen a lot of different kind of shows lately that the editing for certain things, I'm just like, I understand what's going on, but I fucking hate jumping and going from one to another. Like, I'm not... It's not that I'm completely slow on certain things, but when you're going, like, I'm in a story for, like, 3 to 5 minutes, and it doesn't reach a natural conclusion, and then you come back to it 2 to 5 minutes later, you're like, why did you leave? You know what I mean? It's... unnecessary jumping around and editing is fucky, and this show doesn't have it, thank God. Now, granted, certain stuff with certain effects did let me down, but overall the strength of the characters and the stories make up for that, in my opinion. So hopefully, I do understand that when you are dealing with the pandemic, you have to do certain kind of things, and you do have to make certain cost and corner-cutting things. So it's not like it's not understandable to me. But I just hope that we get back to this certain kind of quality that we know of, and that's more of an anomaly that just pops up at a certain points. You know what I mean? I can deal with that, and I can handle that. So, those are my opinions on the 2 episodes. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked them, if you didn't like them, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.